don't seem like you have ADHD.
I'd do better in school too if I took ADHD meds.
But you seem so successful and organized.
That happens to me too. Everyone has a little ADHD.
Is ADHD even real? I heard it's an excuse for being lazy.
I know. Why don't you just try getting a planner?
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I promised I would share my personal story being diagnosed with ADHD with you guys, so here it is. In this video, I'm going to talk about how I got diagnosed with ADHD, which was kind of random, while traveling, and why this condition is often missed, especially in women. And I'll go over some common misconceptions about it as well. Okay, story time. Over the past 8 years, I have pursued traveling the world looking for that next great adventure. About a year ago, I was traveling through Brazil and randomly met a guy on the beach who happened to be a neuropsychiatrist. I thought we were just getting to know each other, but little did I know, he was psychoanalyzing me. So I was explaining my travel style, how my trips are always packed with activities, how I don't know how to relax, I don't relax at home, and I don't relax on vacation. I'm always seeking something adrenaline provoking, like swimming with the sharks or jumping off cliffs. I told him I usually travel solo because I have this inability to plan. I literally book my hostel at the airport. I have no real itinerary when I arrive to a destination, and this can freak some people out if they're relying on me to plan the trip. So I just go solo. We had other random discussions like how I don't try drugs because I think I have an addictive personality. I get addicted to people, activities, ideas, to things. I mean, I had to quit playing video games. I used to play games like RPGs, like Final Fantasy, and I had to stop doing it because these games took 3 days to beat, and I would skip eating. I would make excuses to my friends so I could sit at home and play until I completed them. I was addicted to all kinds of activities. Volleyball, I played religiously through high school, all 4 seasons, beach club, co-ed, whatever. I used to want to be an artist and I used to draw anime. I got addicted to dancing, hip hop, playing guitar, then
Photo editing, then video editing, then drone piloting. The list goes on.
And after all that, he then asked me,
Have you ever considered that maybe you have ADHD?
Wait, me? Moi?
this was not the response I expected. Like me, no way.
That's a child's disease.
How would you even come to that conclusion?
It's an American made-up disease, right?
I thought it was an excuse for poor parenting.
And I thought maybe everyone has a little ADHD.
I literally thought of all the things that would make someone who has ADHD cringe.
Ew.
Looking back, man, I bought into all the stereotypes. After researching it, I realized I knew nothing about ADHD. It's highly misunderstood. All of my preconceived notions about it were wrong. Thinking about that conversation, it kind of made sense now. My restlessness was hyperactivity. My seeking adventure was to get that extra dopamine norepi surge that I lacked. My inability to plan was due to poor perception of time, or what we call time blindness. There's either now or not now. And my addiction to various new hobbies was hyper-focusing on new interests. So I'll briefly go over what ADHD is, and I'll leave a link in the description for some great resources. But basically, in the ADHD brain, there is a deficiency of norepinephrine and dopamine. These neurotransmitters are responsible for regulating your behavior and your emotions. There are 3 primary characteristics considered in the diagnosis: inattention, impulsivity, and hyperactivity. People are diagnosed in one of the 3 categories. They're either inattentive, these are your daydreamers. They can be the hyperactive, impulsive type, which is your stereotype, what everyone thinks of, kid bouncing off walls, or a combined type, which is the most common. So when I got back home, I did some research and I found out that girls may have different behaviors than boys, and partially due to the way we're socialized. Maybe we are inattentive and just seem like we're daydreaming. Maybe the hyperactivity is more mental, so it's not so outwardly noticeable. Or maybe it's verbal and you just seem like a chatty Cathy. Girls often get missed because people picture ADHD as a hyperactive boy who's really disruptive in class. And another issue is that many people don't know they have ADHD because symptoms are so relatable. Everyone has walked into the room and forgot why they're there. They've misplaced their keys, they procrastinate on projects that need to get done, but the diagnosis comes in when it happens so often that it's causing problems in your life, like affecting your relationships or your job. So I went to see a psychiatrist and he went through a series of questions with me. I literally broke down crying because I hit nearly everything listed in the criteria.
Okay, but so what?
Why would someone with a doctorate, a career, who's traveling the world, who's seemingly successul,
Why would you seek out a diagnosis? You've made it this far. You're doing fine.
most people think that ADHD is not paying attention
Oh, look, a squirrel.
or talking too much, but there's a lot more to it. There are problems with working memory, emotional dysregulation, poor perception of time, having imposter syndrome, rejection sensitivity. The problems with the executive functioning can lead to being perceived as lazy or not caring. We lose friends and relationships over that, when in actuality, we care a lot. We care so much that we get frustrated at ourselves and ruminate on our failures. And when you're not diagnosed and you don't know that there's an actual physiological issue with your brain function that contributes to this, then you start internalizing things, attributing these things to being a character flaw.
I'm just a bad friend. Why can't I get things right?
Then you form this skewed perception of yourself, which causes low self-esteem. They get misdiagnosed with depression or anxiety and don't get the underlying cause treated. One of the criteria for diagnosis is that symptoms have to be present before the age of 12. Initially, I thought, well, that's not me, but I remembered how often I forgot my homework in class and would cry to my dad, beg him to take me back to pick it up at school, even though it was closed. He was so great, he would do it anyways, and he would choke and say, if your head wasn't attached to your neck, you'd forget that too, which he was probably right. I would sit and draw in my notebook all day rather than pay attention to class. I was selling homemade comic books to classmates at the age of 10. I was an entrepreneur since childhood. So why did I get missed as a kid? Well, I was smart. ADHD doesn't mean that you're not. I got good grades, so everything seemed fine. And two things that people with ADHD thrive in is having structure and gold stars. My gold stars were my parents praising me for everything, and I mean everything. I draw a stick figure and get praise, and then I just want to impress my parents, so I create posters. In case you're wondering, this is Sailor Moon. This one's called The Mysterious Play. Used to be my favorite animes. And school is very structured. ADHD brains have a difficulty creating structure for themselves, but when they're put in a structured environment, they seem to do well. When I went to college, that all fell apart. I was now responsible for myself. I went from having straight A's in high school to missing classes, falling asleep in class when I did go, got my first F, didn't get into PA school my first year. I somehow managed to get through undergrad, and when I got to PA school, which was very structured, I did fine. People with ADHD oftentimes have trouble keeping a regular job because routine and mundane is kryptonite to us. Luckily, I chose a career in ER, which is different and unpredictable, so it keeps my interest. A couple of years ago, I told my friend I wanted to get an MRI of my brain because I thought I had a brain tumor or early Alzheimer's because I was so forgetful. I would forget things that someone just told me, so I'm great at keeping secrets. One of my friends called me Dory from Finding Nemo. I always lost my keys. My boyfriend years ago bought me a tracker because it happened almost daily. But I found out that ADHD brains have a problem with working memory. So you go through several feelings when you're diagnosed as an adult. A bit of relief that there's a biological explanation for your struggles and it's not just all you as a person. Some excitement that there's support and treatment. But also you go through a little bit of grief because you look back and you feel like you lost time and you could have done more with your life had you had that support that you needed. When you're diagnosed as a child, you have time to build coping strategies. When you're diagnosed as an adult, you spend years beating yourself up over the things that you didn't do right because you didn't have the coping strategies to deal with them. I'm glad I was able to achieve as much as I did, trying to manage everything on my own, but I feel like I could have done more. Dealing with imposter syndrome makes it difficult to be proud of my own accomplishments. And you feel like an imposter because you mask all your struggles because you think normal people can do it, so you should be able to do it too. So you don't ask for help. You tell yourself you just need to try harder. The thing is, strategies that work for neurotypical people may not work for someone with ADHD. It had such a negative effect on my self-esteem that I'm having to learn to reframe my thinking and rebuild my confidence. I forever struggled with rejection sensitivity, which leads to perfectionism, which is another form of procrastination. So getting treated and finding support has been a life changer. And I know there are people who are undiagnosed and would benefit too. That's why bringing awareness and educating people on this topic is so important. When you can identify a problem, you have a clearer path towards finding a solution. For example, when you have ADHD, you have a skewed perception of time. Some call it time blindness. You don't know how long things take you, so sometimes you're overly optimistic and will procrastinate and think it will only take you 10 minutes and you'll put it off until last minute, and then it ends up taking you several hours or all day and your whole day is gone. Adopting methods like Pomodoro, where you set timers, can help you stay on task when you get distracted, time how long things actually take you so you can better plan for the future, and it helps you keep focused because you have a time limit. Or it might help break you out of hyperfocus when you're hyperfocusing on the wrong thing.
And it's always the wrong thing.
People with ADHD have a predictable set of behaviors that are sometimes amazing and other times a struggle. But being able to identify the behaviors you want to change is so empowering. You can notice triggers and find solutions. I mean, it's not as easy as it sounds, and it does take time. It's something to work towards. And the best part is, there's more support out there than ever. I'll list some of my favorite resources in the description. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to subscribe, and if you have any questions for me, leave a comment.